Hey guys, just something that I'd like to, well, it feels like a really important thing for us to explore today is this idea of self-love being at the core, being a foundational component of any and every healing journey. It's a really important switch in perspective and in the way of approaching self, which then trickles out to impact the way that you approach everything, is this ability to, I guess it's just to nurture and to bring love to the self first. A lot of what I see when clients walk through the door and we start talking about where they're at and what's going on for them, and we look at their diet and we explore sleep and exercise and mood and habits and what's going on for them generally, a lot of the time what I hear is their stories about how it wasn't always like that, how they weren't always struggling in that way, because a lot of the time they are. They're struggling. They come because they're struggling and they need some support. And often what I hear is them tell stories of how there was this period of time where they used to get up early and they used to exercise and they ate all the right things and they excluded all of the right things from their diets and they didn't touch gluten and they didn't touch sugar. And they were busy and they did everything that they needed to through the day. They'd get to bed at a decent time. They didn't watch too much television. And a lot of those bad habits that they're now struggling with, they just weren't there. And a lot of the time people want to get back to that. They want to find a way to get back to that. But what we find as we begin to unpack this and we look at, okay, so what was different then? What was the motivation then? A lot of the time, what we come to is that the motivation wasn't necessarily pure, wasn't necessarily clear, wasn't necessarily one that was about self-love, which is why the good habits, the good way of living didn't stick. That's why it didn't hold, because the foundation that those healthy habits, because they're only healthy in as much as they look healthy, but if the motivation and the stresses and the things behind it aren't healthy, then it's not really a healthy habit, was not motivated by something that was enduring, by something that was permanent. A lot of the time they may have been feeling good for one day, or they had a realization about something, and so they started doing all of the right things. But a lot of people use will and self-discipline as a way of making behavior changes that then aren't permanent. And self-discipline is a really imperative and a really important component of self-love. But self-discipline on its own, without the self-love and without that nurturing component, often becomes beating the self up. So I need to be skinny, or I need to look good, or everyone else is doing an hour of exercise every day, so I need to get up early and I need to go to the gym and I need to present myself a certain way, and all of my friends are doing this and I'm not doing that, so I'm going to make myself do that. And it's very externally oriented, and a lot of the time it's fear motivated. Not necessarily, ooh, that kind of fear, but anything that isn't about love and isn't about serving love and producing more love, its root is in something that is fear-based. And that fear-based root could be feeling like you're not good enough, feeling like you fail, feeling like everything that you do is a disgrace, feeling disgusting, feeling unworthy, feeling like you're not as good as everyone else. Whatever it is, if it's not about love, if it's not about I love myself enough to want to take care of myself and to want to give myself a different experience, or to experience more wholeness or experience more health, then it's probably fear-based. And I invite all of you to look at that, just to ponder on that and have a look at what are your motivations? What are your motivations for getting up in the morning and for making the food that you make and for exercising or not exercising, because that can be a very fear-based thing as well. Or for your motivation for the things that you achieve or don't achieve through the day, the motivation for staying up late or for going to bed super early. And just unpack that and just have a look, because it just could be an interesting insight for you to have a look at how much of that is motivated by love. By love, it can be love of other, but self-love is what we're really exploring and really looking at today. Do you do these things because it's the best thing for you and because you love yourself enough to have a healthy experience and to have a healthy existence? Or is it about something that's fear-based, something that's about comparing, being better than, not being good enough, all of that stuff? And just ponder on that, because often what we find is when people are having those good spells, it's that fear motivation that got them through and got them being really martial and enabled them to really harness their will and really push themselves through things and get things done. But a lot of the time when you're doing that, you're not actually being present in what's going on for you. You're riding over the top of your experience and writing over the top of your experience with another experience, trying to force change and force things to be different without actually feeling how you feel and changing, altering, processing, raising the vibration of the motivation. And when I get clients to really explore this, what I invite them to do and challenge them to do, and kind of say you have to do if you really want to, and if you want to permanently change, is that the motivation needs to become about self-love. You can't be eating the right things because you're scared of what will happen if you don't eat the right things. It needs to be eating the right things, or eating the things that work for you, because you love yourself and because you're ready to have a different experience, and you want this body to be healthy and you want this body to be at its optimal level of functioning. It needs to be about love rather than being about fear. Not being afraid of the consequences, but instead loving yourself enough to stay with what is actually necessary and what is actually required. And when you move into that space, when it's about self-love, the motivation is self-love, then this kind of different thing happens where your natural way of being, your natural way of expressing health, expressing emotions, expressing physically, expressing mentally, that really natural state of being begins to come into balance. Because for all of us, there is this potential state that we could exist in, which is about love. There's this potential state that we could exist in which is about harmony and which feels like harmony. There's a potential for all of us. And it's for us to be discovering and uncovering that potential. But a lot of the time, that potential, that ideal self, that ideal expression of self, that healthy expression, that whole expression of self, is not out of your grasp because it's gone somewhere. It's at the root. And a lot of the time what you've done is you've plastered unhealthy habits and unhealthy behaviors and unhealthy thought patterns, unhealthy emotions. You've taken on other people's emotions, critical thinking, judgments, tendencies, and you've plastered that stuff on top of this really pure, it's like this innocent little nugget that exists within, in the middle, in the midst of it all, and that's your purest potential. But you lose that when you start taking on behaviors and taking on thought patterns and taking on emotional patterns, which then translate into physical patterns, physical ways of eating, laziness, ways of being with yourself, beating yourself up, judging yourself, judging others. It crumples and it cramps and it puts this kind of dirty layer on top of what could be your pure, most authentic and natural expression of the self. And I really believe that health, because everyone's expression of health is going to be different, because everyone is extremely unique. It's not about trying to get everyone looking the same or having the same body type or expressing the same or doing the same kind of exercise or eating the same kinds of foods, because that is very unique and very varied across each individual, and that really needs to be respected and really needs to be understood, because no one is going to be the same. How health feels and what it looks like is not going to be the same for any two individuals. And we really need to be providing a space where people can really accept that and really acknowledge that and really embrace their unique expression of their true self and their most healthy selves. Because it's just about you being the best version of you, however that looks, and well, it will feel better than the non-authentic expression of you. So it is going to feel better, but it's not going to feel like how that person feels. It's not going to look like how that person looks. And it really is my belief that if we can just remove the bad habits, and I mean physical habits, about physically looking after yourself, what you eat, exercise, sleep, spending time in nature, spending time meditating or not meditating, and all of those physical habits, but the emotional habits, removing the emotional habits of getting down on yourself, feeling sorry for yourself, feeling like you're worthless, feeling like you're insignificant, all of those feelings that are kind of crushing and crumpling and keep you stuck and keep you stagnant and keep you small, and all of the mental negative habits as well. So the bad thought patterns, or the thought patterns that aren't helpful, about seeking revenge or not liking that person or judgment of that thing or judgment of this thing, or beliefs about that person or beliefs about this, and things that don't serve, things that don't help. And if we strip that away, if we strip away the bad habits, if we strip away and remove the addiction to sugar, or the tendency to overconsume caffeine, or the addiction to alcohol, the addiction to drugs, the addiction to over-exercising, the addiction to laziness, the addiction to spiraling down into a pit of depression, whatever it is, if you remove the bad habits, you take those out, the things that don't actually come naturally to you, the learnt behaviours, things that you've seen other people do or that you've been told by society that you should do, that don't fit in with the truth of who it is that you actually are, then you'll find yourself. And if you don't try to grasp on to how anyone else is doing it, just wipe the slate clean, embrace, open yourself and be open to exploring and discovering who you are and how it is that you're going to express, then very naturally that little truth seed, that authentic self, that healthy self that exists at the core of all of that chaos and all of that learnt behavior will begin to sprout. It will begin to shine, it will begin to come forth, and you'll begin to discover yourself. So a lot of what I do with my clients and a lot of what needs to happen, I feel, on a global scale is, rather than trying to take that as it exists, so there's the truth, the core of the authentic self of who you really are, and then there's all of the bad habits, instead of attempting to plaster good habits on top of all of that mess, and force yourself out of the bad habits and into the good habits, and I'm going to stay here and I'm going to do this good thing and I'm going to eat all the right stuff and I'm going to go all the right places. Instead of doing that, which inevitably fails because you're not dealing with all of the bad habits that are in there and all of the stuff that's underneath that, and instead you're just attempting to override it and pretend that all of the bad habits just don't exist, I feel that it should be about looking at the things that are no longer working and actively going through a process of eliminating the bad habits, and when all of the stuff that's not working is removed, seeing what's left, seeing what's true, what is actually you, what is actually yours, how is it that you are going to be, what is it that you're going to embody, how is it that you're going to express, how is it that you're going to feel, and then creating a safe space where you can nurture the growth of that. You can nurture the production and the expansion and the full embodiment of whatever it is that's hiding away at that core. And that's how you make permanent change. But what needs to motivate that, the missing ingredient, the ingredient that most people are missing, is the self-love. Because it's the self-love that provides you with the motivation, the space, the willingness, the determination to actually experience and discover that true self. And it's the self-love that the love really seeks to nurture that authentic self, nurture that truth, nurture that health, nurture that growthful and growing and evolving expression of you that you really are. And as backwards as it may seem, because love has gotten a bit of a bad rap, and people seem to think that love is just fluffy and it's just about feeling good and it's just about bunnies and happiness and smiles and giggles and all of that kind of light-hearted stuff. That's what people believe love is, instead of, it seems to be forgotten that love is actually a force to be reckoned with, and it's actually a force of nature, and it's actually a force of evolution, and it's this energy that seeks to grow things and seeks to allow things to express to their fullest potential. And love is very active in that love is always seeking to turn anything that is not love into love. So love is very healing, and love will actively seek out the dysfunction, seek out the things that are no longer working, and consume the things that are no longer working so that love can take its place. And it's very, very active in that way. If you really align to love, if you let go of this idea of love just being fluffy and about things staying the same and things just feeling good all the time, and instead embrace love as an evolutionary force that's going to allow you to change and to seek change and to be transformed through this process of seeking change, then you'll begin to recognize the healing potential and the healing power of love. And that's one of the vital ingredients in this self-love. It's that activity of love as a transformational force, as a powerful healing force of nature. And when you align to that kind of love and you allow that kind of love to move through you, if you allow yourself to become a vessel for that kind of love, then that love is going to very naturally and very actively seek out those bad habits that we were just talking about, the things that are dysfunctional, the things that are fear-based, and it's going to seek to change those things. So it takes a lot of confront, but that self-love kind of provides you with this really nurturing and supportive space so that you can confront all of the things that you're doing that are not serving and are not working for you and are not about love and are not about your greatest expression of you. And the love's going to help you with that. Because a lot of the time what I see when people aren't coming from that space of self-love and they're coming from a place of unworthiness or not good enough or never going to be enough or never going to get there, or I'm always in pain and I'm always suffering and I can't change that and I can't do anything about it and I'm a victim to my circumstances. When they're coming from that place, when it comes time for them to confront the things that need to change, because in healing there's always going to be things that you need to confront, that you need to change. Because if you were doing everything perfectly, then you would be perfect, you would be healthy, you would be vibrant, you would be okay. But if you're having some kind of a healing crisis or you're not feeling like your healthiest self, then there's stuff in there that needs to change. There's stuff that needs to be confronted. And if you're coming from that place of fear, then the chances are that you're not going to have the strength or the ability to confront those things and then to actually do something about it. And when I talk about confront, I don't just mean going, oh my God, I'm worthless and I'm a bit of rubbish, so I'm going to right over the top of everything and use my will to rah-rah all of these new habits and all these new behaviors, because again, that's just skirting over the top of things. That's not getting all the way down into altering and changing and looking at the motivation and clearing away those bad habits. It's just putting another layer on top of the bad habits or on top of the things that need to be confronted and need to be changed. When I talk about confront, I mean really, and this is a process again that really requires that self-love, really looking at yourself and really looking at what you're doing with your life and how you're spending your time and how you're eating and how you're sleeping and how you're exercising or how you're not doing these things, and going, okay, none of that is working. That self-beating thought that I'm constantly having, where I tell myself that I'm worthless or that no one will love me or that I'm not good enough, that's not working. And that emotional fear that I have of getting things wrong, it's not working and it's not helping and it's not healthy. So what is it that I can sense as being possible for me? And how is it that I go all the way into this experience, all the way into this habit, and I actually change it from the inside? And that's the confront that's needed, because in every moment of every day, that's the kind of confront that we need to be having. If we want to be living our best lives and be living as the most authentic and true and whole expressions of ourselves, and it's that level of confront that we need to be bringing to life. We can't be afraid of the truth. We can't be afraid of seeing our shortcomings and seeing the things that we're doing that are no longer working. We need to be able to seek these things out so that we can then do something about it. We can then change it. And that's really about owning your power and no longer submitting to being a victim to life. This thing just happens to me. This thought just occurs for me. I'm subjected to my genetic predisposition to anxiety, or people just always leave, or people just always treat me like this, or I'm just always fat, or I'm always in pain, or I've always got bad skin, or whatever it is, and just passively submitting to that as being part of our reality. Sure, there are some things, particularly on that genetic level, that you have to find a way to live with that, because some things you just at the moment can't actually alter and can't take away permanently. But a lot of the stuff that people experience as being limiting and that they just accept as being part of their reality, if they took back their power and they had that confront and they had the self-love that is necessary, that willingness and that determination and that fight to be more and to be better and to be healthy and to be strong and to live in total authenticity, then a lot of that stuff could be changed. A lot of that stuff could be reversed. There's a lot that we have power over, or we could have power over, if we took that power back and ceased submitting to being a victim to our health circumstances. And that's what the self-love allows you to do. When you reach a point where you just go, look, regardless of what's going on, or how anyone else sees me, or how anyone else is approaching me, or anyone else is treating me, I'm here and I'm with myself and I'm taking up space, and I know, regardless of how I feel about myself, or regardless of what my mind is telling me, or regardless of that thought pattern or what the rest of society is saying, I know that I have a right to be healthy. I have a right to be here. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. I have a right to discover myself and to flourish and to grow and to discover myself anew and to bring myself to the world in all of my expression and all of my authenticity and all of my potential greatness. And it is absolutely my right to discover that, to discover what that is, and to go through a process of transformation so that I can move into being that greatest version of myself. And I'm going to be here with myself, and I'm going to support myself through that journey, again, regardless of anything else. Then what you become capable of and how you become capable of changing becomes enormous. It becomes enormous. It's almost infinite. There's so much that you can do when you take that power back and you're motivated by self-love and you're motivated by this willingness and this determination to discover and to actually express as the best, purest, most authentic version of yourself. Then all the power is back in your hands. You are not subjected to anything that's happening outside of you. You are not the victim to anything that anyone else is doing, or anything that you've chosen in the past, or any of your previously installed bad habits, or any of the ways that you think about yourself. You begin to be in the driver's seat, and you begin to be able to actually start changing those things and doing something about it, and having a different experience and discovering yourself. And I'm not saying that it's easy. It can be simple in that it's about being true to the self, and it's about eliminating the things that no longer work and constantly seeking the best expression of yourself, the most authentic expression of yourself. But the things that you're going to have to confront in that process and through that journey are going to be, a lot of it's going to be a bit painful, because you're going to have to confront what you think about yourself. You're going to have to confront what you think about other people, what you think about the world. You're going to have to confront feelings about yourself, feelings about experiences that you've had here in this life, feelings about other people, feelings of being dependent on other people, feelings of being lost and lonely and feeling isolated and feeling misunderstood and angry and all of that stuff. You're going to have to confront all of it. And you're going to have to confront the sluggishness and the inertia and the heaviness of this physical body. You're going to have to confront its habits and its addictions and its tendencies and its all too ready willingness to submit and be passive And you're going to have to take all of that, and through self-love, through a presence with the self, and through that motivation to discover the self and be the best that you can be, you're going to have to take all of it and go, I love you. Thank you. You served me up until now, but we're doing things differently now. And it's not about just riding over the top of that stuff, but about being present in every single moment, being grounded, being real about everything that's happening for you. And when you're staying up until 2 in the morning and resisting going to bed, you got to check in. What is it? What's going on for me that's making me feel like I want to stay up, when I know that I'm just going to be exhausted in the morning, and then when I'm exhausted in the morning, I'm not going to be able to achieve everything that I want to achieve through the day, and then I'm going to feel bad, and then I'm going to beat myself up, and then I'm going to eat a tub of ice cream to make myself feel better, and then I'm going to stay up until 2 a.m. again. And you got to grab hold of that while it's happening and go, hey, what's going on here? Because that's not self-love. That's not motivated by self-love. That's motivated by fear. Grabbing hold of that and going, what's the fear here that's motivating this? Is it laziness? Is it habit? Is it feeling worthless? Is it feeling like that's all I deserve because I always fail anyway? Is it because I am afraid of the dark? I don't like being alone in my bed, or whatever it is. And then you grab hold of that fear and you go, I love you. We're not doing that anymore. It's time to do things differently. And then lovingly, kindly, gently take yourself off to bed and do the thing that you know is going to be best for you. And that's self-love. It's not about being passive. Love is not about being passive. It's not about just submitting to things being the way that they are. It's about nurturing that which is love and nurturing that which is life, and seeking to raise it up, seeking to support it, seeking to champion it. And self-love is about bringing that love to the self in such a way that you become motivated to be different and to be transformed. Self-love is not about being selfish. There's a bit of a thing around where people seem to judge self-love as being narcissism. What the narcissists are doing, that's not self-love, that's some kind of self-righteous self-obsession, which has nothing to do with love, because love is about transmutation, transformation, healing, growing, evolving. And it's finding a way to be comfortable and to be okay with doing that. And I really feel that that is at the core. That's one of the foundations, the most important things for us to understand as self-healers, so that we can then take that out into our lives and apply that and expand that and keep growing that and developing that and letting it trickle out into all aspects of our life. So I just invite you to really reflect on that, really ponder on what your motivations are, what's keeping you going, why do you do the things that you do, how much of it is about fear, and where can you turn around those thought patterns, where can you turn around that emotional experience, where can you turn around what it is that you're doing on a physical level and make it something that's about love, make it something that's about serving this process of you becoming the greatest expression, the purest, the clearest expression of the most authentic self that you can be. And just spend time with that, just really feeling into that, and then also spending time in meditation, perhaps, is the best way to do this. Just being still, being quiet, and just letting yourself feel into what is that authentic, unique, genuine, healthy expression of you that you can become. How does that feel? What does he or she look like? What does your life look like when you're expressing as that version of yourself? How does your mind work? What kind of thoughts are you having or not having? How are you expressing emotionally? What kinds of things have you been struggling with that are no longer there? What have you installed on that emotional level that is more about love? What kinds of things are you doing? What's your body telling you? Because your body will begin to speak to you. When you remove those bad habits, the body will begin to tell you, I need this kind of food right now. I need this kind of exercise right now. I need rest now. I need to be up now. I need activity now. And the body will very naturally, the bodies on a physical, emotional, mental and spiritual level will begin to speak to you and will begin to offer up insight into what's required from moment to moment. And if you're in self-love and you're actively working to just remove and undo all those bad habits or those things that no longer serve and no longer work for you, and you're motivated by being focused on what it is that you're moving towards and what it is that you're creating for yourself, then you begin to be able to listen to that. And you begin to be able to live in a way that is about being true to what it is that you're receiving as inspiration from these various levels of your expression. And that's a really nice place to be in. Things become, again, not necessarily easy, but really simple from that space. So just spend time feeling into what that feels like for you, where it is that you might be heading. And then I invite you every day just to spend time with that authentic expression of yourself that you can feel is possible, and just feel into that. Spend time with that every day, just getting a sense of what kinds of things is that version of you doing. How is that version living? How does that version feel? And just attempt to install some of that here now, to change this self so that it reflects more of what it is that you sense is your potential, what it is that you can become. And work with that self-love. Feel how you feel about self-love and choose it. Just choose it anyway, because it's fundamental and it really is at the core of permanent and genuine and full-bodied change and healing. And just enjoy exploring that. We'll keep unpacking.